Hello world, this is Shruti Pandey, and today I have with me an amazing human, Chris Colburn, who is the co-founder of Demostory.io. I've known him since a little more than a year now. We met past year where he wanted to make me understand how his tool can really help in the life of a solutions engineer. And I totally feel that it does help. And without sounding too salesy and getting into the solutions engineering aspect of mine, I would try to keep the focus on Chris's journey and inspiration that he has for all of us. So thank you so much, Chris, for giving me your time today and gracing my platform.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
So before I get into the three questions that I have for you, do you want us to give any heads up, anything at all, or should I straight dive into the questions?
Yeah, let's just dive right in.
Awesome, awesome. So while I did not mention this, and while he doesn't look so old, Chris already has a decade worth of experience as a solutions engineer himself. So, Chris, I want to understand, having all that experience and having a stable job, getting a nice paycheck month after month, what really inspired you or triggered you into starting a company of your own after all that experience, and what led to Demo Story?
Yeah, so I think it's a few things. I'd always thought at some point I wanted to start my own business, but wasn't really sure, what I wanted to do. And then, I'd found a lot of success, working at software companies and eventually becoming an SE. Is actually one of my really good buddies from high school used to be an SE, and now he's an entrepreneur and has a handful of businesses. And during COVID, I started going to his office a couple of days a week to get out of the house. And, he was like, man, there's just not enough stuff for SEs. Like, there's definitely a way for us to do SE business. And he was like, maybe we should do training. And I was just like, that's not like my strong suit. And we were toying around with some ideas. And he had brought up the idea of a browser. And like, as soon as he said that, like, I couldn't get it out of my head. And so what Demostory is it's a browser that makes giving especially persona-based demos a lot easier. I like to think of it as it's a demo browser. And I just realized, like, I would spend so much time creating like 5 or 6 Chrome profiles to be able to like easily tell my story of how a bunch of different user roles or persona types interact with the demo, and just how much time that would take me to prep. And then also how easy it was for my audience to get lost. And it was like, once that idea got into my head, I just like couldn't unsee it. And I'd been a product manager as well at some of the software companies I worked at. And so we looked around on Upwork, we found a developer, and then I just decided to go all in. I left my job in December 2020, and then we launched in April or that's spring in 2021. So yeah, it all happened like pretty fast. But it's been, it's been an awesome ride. And one of the things I realized is I knew I could always go get another SE job, and that I would only be more employable and more hireable if it didn't work out. And so kind of like looking at it through that lens, I thought it was worth the risk. And I just, I was like, do I want to look back in 5 years and be like, I didn't try it, versus like I tried it and failed. And I think for me, as I've gotten a little older, I realized like the worst thing you can do is be afraid to fail. Like, failure is how you learn. Failure is a stepping stone to success. And so, it's really kind of, and then also being around my partner, Alec, a lot, is just realized like, I want more risk. I want to be less afraid to fail more often. And that's really how you can kind of, move forward personally and professionally.
Wow, I absolutely love that story. And I appreciate your honesty and transparency because um, it is very relatable. I would really like to say that it's very relatable, the fact that we might feel scared of failure. And I absolutely love the fact that you know your strength, that even if I fall back on a job again, I'm going to be even more employable, as they say, because now I have even more experience and more worth and value. And you didn't have to say, like spill all the beans and give those secrets out, because those are my secrets too, and people don't know those yet. And you just, yeah, it is definitely very scary to take a risk, but I absolutely love the fact that you took the risk, because I remember back when I was in SE and I was talking to you about this journey of yours, this product of yours as a solutions engineer, how much a tool like this can help us is like needless for me to say, because half of the time people think solutions engineers are just demo engineers because that's what they are doing all the time. But we are supposed to be doing so much more. And if anything can take away that, wasting of time for just prepping the demo, it gives us more time to do more things and the right things that are needed. So thank you so much.
Yeah. No problem. I will say another thing. I certainly having a supporting wife made a huge difference for me to kind of take the leap. So I don't want to forget to mention my wife Erin, because it's a big decision when you're going to quit your job and you have a spouse and you have all the bills. So that was awesome. And then to the prep time. As far as setting up demos and prep time, I look at it like this. You can say that if your prep takes an hour, you'll still spend an hour on your story. I think the reality is, like, you're probably going to spend X amount of time getting ready for a demo. And would you rather spend more time like doing the technical setup, or really rehearsing your story points, your talking points, and things like that? And the way I look at it is, like, you have to have the technical setup to tell the story. But if you don't spend enough time practicing the story, then the technical setup doesn't really matter if people get lost. And so I just like the idea of being able to spend more time focusing on like the story you're going to tell than that technical setup. Because really, anyone can set up a piece of software. Like, the reason that you're an SC and you're in front of customers is your ability to communicate and your ability to tell really good stories. And so that's where you should be spending, the majority of your time, is making sure you have all that really tight.
So for that two-part of your answer, first of all, I would like to mention I absolutely respect you even more for the fact that you thanked your wife. Not many people have the courage to come on a podcast and say that out loud to the world. So thank you. I respect you more for that. And I have a follow-up question. So now that you've narrated your journey of how this, thinking started to happen, why the need and the journey of starting a product like this, I want to understand, what was your biggest learning as a founder for Demostory? Like, it could be any learning, whichever you
Yeah.
feel like sharing, but if at all you feel like sharing some learnings from this journey so far.
Yeah. So to go back to the failure piece a little bit, a huge part of any piece of software or company being successful is sales. Shocking, right? And when we started building Demostory, I didn't do any kind of marketing until we actually launched, because I was kind of nervous of talking about it for 3 months and then it not happening. And so I didn't really build up any kind of like demand or anticipation of it. So if I could go back, like that would be one thing I would build up a lot more, anticipation of what we were doing and trying to get more people excited about it versus like, hey, we're here. So I think, that's a big one. The other one is with any software company, if I was to start again, I'd make my prices higher at the beginning. So, I think you don't really know what people are going to be willing to pay.
Right.
And it's really easy to doubt yourself or your product and lower the price. But but if your price is too low, then people think, well, maybe it's not that valuable. It takes about the same amount of work to sell like a small deal as a large deal a lot of times. And it's really hard to raise your price on customers. And so like just looking at it from a software like point, I probably would start with a much higher price. It gives you a lot more room to negotiate and things like that. So those are two things that, like, just kind of from the business side, I would do a little different, starting it over. The like we talked about this a little bit for the call. The other big thing I've learned is really, I'm an account executive now for all intents and purposes for Demostory, right? A huge part of my job is more than just doing demos. So I've learned a lot more about kind of like the life as an AE, and it's a much smaller scale, and I'm selling to people I know, but I certainly respect my AEs that maybe I had given a hard time in the past. If any of you are out there, I'm sorry. But I definitely feel they're paying a lot more having to do kind of the other side of sales. So I've learned a lot around that as well.
Chris, I love for the fact how amazing you are in just acknowledging everything so transparently and honestly out there. Because yes, sometimes as SEs, we might think that what does an AE really do except for getting and arranging a call? We might get ungrateful without understanding. So kudos to you for just giving that big shout out to your old colleagues. And I want to understand two aspects to your business side of answer. I mean, if I were you, I would also feel the same way. Like, I need to get my product and then start talking about it. But do you think there is a need to create all the hula hoo about something which is in the making and then you'll get it launched? Like, I don't understand the timeline here.
Yeah. So I saw a quote from someone, I don't remember where I saw it,
Sure.
and they talked about a startup, and they were like, you think to do a software startup you need to code, but the most important skill is sales. And really, and I've come to realize that too, but it's really sales and marketing. So it's like, how do you generate buzz around your products? For the most part, if I get people to download and use Demostory for a live demo, they convert. And so that's not the hard part of the sale. It's getting someone to give me enough attention to go sign up, download the browser, and then spend the time to try it. And so what I really have to do is generate attention, buzz, get people to look at what I'm doing and try the browser. That's actually the hardest part of the sale. And I could have generated a lot more, or at least tried to generate a lot more buzz about what Demostory is going to be before we launched it. And I think ultimately our success or failure, like that's a very small part of it.
Right.
But I think it would have helped a lot more in the beginning, get a lot of sales, because especially when we launched, by the time people started looking, we launched in the spring. By the time I started getting some people to try it, it was the summer. And, it's just hard to keep people's attention in the summer. It really wasn't until the fall in 2021 that like all of a sudden I had people like, hey, we want to buy it for the whole team. Or I get an email, one person downloaded it and I get an email and it's like, we want 15 licenses for our whole team. So it took a little while to do that. And so, just kind of building up awareness, right? Like, who are these people? I think you can do a lot of that while you're building. And you can start the marketing and the sales. It's just so important. Even though for the most part, a lot of my sales is through word of mouth, right? Like one SC tries it and they tell the rest of their team or their friends, but it's just so important that I would say it's a mistake not to start thinking about marketing and sales while you're building the product, and to think that it's something you can worry about afterwards. And that's probably, if I were to boil it down even more, that's probably just one of the mistakes I wish you would have spent more time, on the kind of marketing side while we were building the product. And look, I mean, since then our marketing has been good, and LinkedIn's really been really awesome for me because I can reach a lot of SEs there. But yeah, that's just kind of the thought, is that the marketing piece is so hard. And honestly, as an SE, that's the one piece of the company I never dealt with. I dealt with product, I dealt with support, I dealt with customers, I dealt with sales, I dealt with dev and DevOps and leadership and, the politics and all that. But I never really had to deal with marketing because I only talked to customers once they were interested, right? I'm not doing any of that cold call reach out. Like, I'm only talking to people who were interested in scheduling a demo with me. And so that was the other thing. I just didn't have the marketing background. It was like the one place in a software company that was just a complete like black box to me. So that's just been the other thing. I've had to learn it.
Really, I find it really hard to even think about that, because at startups that I've worked for my last experiences, everybody would just be reaching out to solutions engineers, or I'm not sure if that was just me, whatever that be. And I don't want to get into bragging about myself, but I got an opportunity to look into all of those aspects. And as much as you mentioned out politics, it's difficult to work with sales and marketing and everybody. But I think I learned a lot. And the way you shared your experiences makes tons of sense to me. You reminded me of one dialogue that I use, and I'm going to share it with you, which I hope you understand Taj Mahal, right? It's one of the
Yep.
wonders of the world that we have in India. And I remember telling this to my CRO. I mean, I didn't know what else to tell him. So I finally told him that, there's no point in having a Taj Mahal if the world doesn't know about it.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You're 100% on. And yeah, that's the thing. Just uh, I had worked at one startup that had about 50 people, but every place else I worked was kind of bigger enterprise, and there
Yeah.
was a marketing team. And so, maybe I'd get asked to put together like a quick video, or like, someone on marketing would ask me to do like a LinkedIn live, but I wasn't like, sending out cold emails and things like that. I mean, I have one of my biggest customers. They signed up December last year.
Uh-huh.
And when I finally, and the first time I spoke to him was on a call with his boss and his whole team. And I started demoing Demostory, and he stopped me and then demoed it for his team. And then he goes, yeah, I've been seeing Chris's stuff on LinkedIn for about 6 months. And I finally had some time the other day to download it and try it. And I'm thinking, it took you 6 months of me posting stuff on LinkedIn to finally try it. And, that's just what I've realized. Like, you have to send people 3, 5, 6 emails sometimes. You have to hit them at the right time. And that just part of the market. It's just, out of all the stuff I did at the enterprise software companies I worked at, that's just not something I really ever had to think or worry about that part. And so,
Right.
that's one of the things I've had to learn so much about marketing that I just never really thought of or ever like worried about
Right.
before. So
I think we can have an entire podcast session with you again on just this marketing bit, because I think it's so diverse. And while I was not always the face of things, but yes, seriously, we can, if required, and if we feel like, we can actually have an entire episode just on marketing, as
yeah, I would tell you it's probably better to get someone who's really good at marketing. I actually know a lot more about being an SC than marketing, but as far as like what I've learned the most being a business owner, it's just a big part of the business. And I
it
think a
is.
lot of SCs, to your point, don't always think about that because we start kind of later in the process when we engage with customers.
Absolutely. And I love the second part of your business answer where you mentioned about the pricing. And you are the second founder that I've had on the podcast who mentioned about this, the pricing gambit. They're like, it's better to quote yourself a little higher than starting off with a low price, because ironically, the times we are living in, I don't understand why there is no value to free help, free advice, free knowledge. Everything has to be a course. Everything has to be, branded and priced, and only then people value it. I mean, I find it a little hard. And you also own some degree in psychology, right? So you might be a better person to answer this, but I don't understand why it always has to be with some price. And the higher the price is, the more, okay, desirable it is suddenly, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if people with bigger budgets are kind of less particular sometimes and realize like it's about moving forward. But I also just think like you're always going to have customers that want a discount. You can always lower your price. It's just really hard to go the other way.
Right.
And you know, if you and you really need to look at like what's the value I'm bringing,
Mm,
right? Versus kind of like the cost to build. Like you really need to be focusing on the value.
right.
And the way I look at it, right? Like, I mean, specifically for demos and sales, I don't think you become like a better salesperson or a better SE like in 50%, 30% chunks, right? It's like your demo gets 5% better here, 5% better here, 5% better here. And next thing you know, it's a lot better. And like what's the value of you closing, like of your demos being 5% better for a whole year like, what's the value if you close 2 more deals that year? And so when you start to think about costs in the form of like the value you're bringing to a company, that's, I think, just a better kind of mental model for any would-be founder or someone to startup, is try to think about the value you're bringing, and then drive a cost from there. And also just start really high. And until people complain, I would just say be a number where people complain about the price. You never want people to tell you that if they're like, oh, this is a great deal, it's too low. So.
Right. Makes absolute sense. So reverse psychology.
Yeah, and I would say, I probably that's actually some advice an old account executive of mine gave me, and I didn't take it at the time. But I would bet if any AEs are listening, that they're here like absolutely shaking their head. They're you don't want to negotiate against yourself. You want to start higher. You want to focus on the value. So I think it was just something, just, you don't know what you don't know till you dive into it. That's been probably one of the most fun things about doing the startup, besides working for myself, is just that, like, just I'm learning so many new things like all the time, even a year and a half into it. And so that that's just been another cool kind of side effect of the whole experience.
Awesome. I mean, I'm getting to learn not just about the foundation of companies, but also marketing, sales, business, and so many more things from you, Chris. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And I want to understand one last thing from you, which is, I don't want to take away your prior experience, right? Because you don't just become a founder from day one. So all your experience as an SE may have led you to this. So I want to understand, what were your biggest learnings as an SE, and did that help you in becoming the founder of a company? Because I absolutely feel very proud when I see SEs becoming a CEO or a CXO or whatever designation that might be. And it feels really, really humbling that, okay, we have a lot to do and a longer way to go. So any learnings that you has as an SE that you would like to share, and in case that helped you in this becoming a founder journey of yours?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I learned as an SE is it didn't matter how long I had demoed a piece of software or how good I got. As soon as I let my practice and prep slip, I would give a bad demo. And as soon as I started thinking about how great I was giving demos is when I would give a bad one. And that, it was the practice and prep that made my demos really good. And to not lose sight of the little things that make you successful. And it just becomes really easy to kind of get caught up in your own ego. And so I would say, like, out of all the things I learned as an SE, like, that's probably the most important one, is just to, like, remember the little things you do that make you, like, remember to do the little things that make you successful. And it's really easy to, at least for me, to start thinking that you're so amazing and oh, whatever, yeah, I'll just show up and do this demo, won't be a big deal. And then, you forgot to set a form, or, you didn't grab a glass of water and now your mouth is parched, or just, some of those things. So I think I think that's probably one of the biggest things, is just, it's kind of helped me, with being the founder as well, is just to remember the little things that, that have made me successful in the past.
What amazing piece of advice, and I think life hacks, right from respecting your partner to apologizing to your older former colleagues, AEs, and little things do matter, and we need to pay great attention to them. This makes absolute sense to me. And before we wrap up this conversation, do you have any parting thoughts, Chris, that you would like to share? Anything that you feel like you missed talking about, or anything at all?
Yeah, so I think one of the other things, and I don't think I hit on this enough, but so one of the big reasons I started Demostory is, I worked as an SC at a lot of places where sometimes I was the only SC, or there were two SCs, or the person managing the SC team had never been an SC and didn't really understand it. And a huge part of the job is showing up and killing your demos and being great in front of customers, right? If you can't do that part of it, all the other stuff just matters a lot less, right? Like, how confident is your account executive when they pass the baton to you, so to speak. And so when I built Demostory, you know, it is not a tool for your manager to better track your time. It's not an organization tool. Like, it is a tool specifically to help you do the most important thing of your job, which is demoing the software you're selling. And so like, that's where my focus is like, and what I'm passionate about is like helping SEs, you know, just give better demos, give better presentations, and make their life easier. And so that's, you know, that's like just, you know, kind of very passionate for me, just because I've been at places where, you know, people call me and they're like, hey, can you jump on the call in 5 minutes and do an hour demo? And I'm just like, you have no idea. Like, I don't just show up and this stuff looks good. There's a lot of practice, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And so I think just one, you know, just kind of being a voice for SEs that have to deal with that. And then also to give them a product that just makes their lives easier. And so that's just, you know, another thing that I'm really passionate about, and that I'm super excited about the product and all that. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a pitch, you know, but
I'll tell you something. I got goosebumps when you mentioned about, you know, jumping off on the call, like getting that intimation just 5 minutes before. You reminded me of the time when, you know, sometimes when you would look at the calendars of other seniors and you're like, my calendar is busier than most of them because every slot is just blocked. And I'm not sure if you have experienced this, but there was no time to pee. It's like, literally, I'm not exaggerating, but do you know that
I've messaged my AEs on Slack and be like, I have to leave 5 minutes early. I have another demo and I need a couple minutes before it. I'm like, you know, like tapping my feet under the thing, like, oh, let's get this thing over.
I totally get it, but I literally had goosebumps when you said that, because I think it's universal. You are like such a needed person as an SE that everybody wants you in every goddamn demo, and you would just be informed like minutes before, or maybe the call is already on and they're like, you know what, it's on. You just need to hop on. And I'm like, it's not that easy. What? What are they supposed to know about us? And gosh.
Well, so when that happens to me, I get on the call, I kill it, and then afterwards, I'm like, "Hey, everybody, never again."
This is not how
you know,
it's done.
then after the call, then you get mean Chris internally. So, you know, that's the other thing I think you got to own your calendar and you got to push back on account executives. They're great at getting people to do stuff they don't necessarily want to do. It's a huge part of sales, convincing people. So you got to make sure that you push back on them a little bit and don't let them take advantage of you too much.
Oh, this is the best icing on the top, because you made me realize this thing is universal. I used to feel it's something very Indian, you know, being dragged and pulled in all directions as an SE. And again, I feel your pain when you're just the only SE, or maybe two or three of them, and you're just being everywhere, like, you know, parallelly executing everywhere all the time. So, okay, it's universal. And people, just watch out this interview, because all the amazing life hacks that this guy has shared so simply, you will probably only realize if you have feel that brunt, the heat, and had that, you know, the blood, sweat, and tears, and maybe then understand what he's talking about. But you made absolute sense to me. I have even more respect for you, Chris. Not that I didn't had it a year earlier when we first got connected, but I have even more respect for you today for being such an amazing person, such a killer SE, and a great founder already in the making. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks again for having me. Was a really fun chat. And you know, like I said before, I listened to a handful of your episodes before this, and there's great content. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and you know, giving people like me a platform to talk about, you know, not only Demostory, but my journey from SE to a startup. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
thanks.